morning, Chair and members of the Commission. First off, I want to thank you guys for having this meeting of the Commission on Maui to get a lot of community involvement as much as possible. The county really appreciates that. In regards
Sorry, can you repeat your name for the record?
Oh, I'm sorry. Deputy Corporation Counsel Caleb Rowe on behalf of the County of Maui Department of Water Supply.
Jeff Pearson, Director, Department of Water Supply.
I think just from the beginning, we want to say that we're very, very grateful and impressed by the effort that went into generating this proposed decision in order. I think Dr. Miike had quite a Herculean task ahead of him, and I think that he developed a framework for how to go about doing it that was not only smart, but is legally sound. With regards to the County of Maui's position, we are of course grateful that Dr. Miike provisionally recognized that our 1.78 existing use and 1.41 of proposed new use million gallons per day, that he recognized those as being public trust purposes, and that he provisionally authorized us to receive those. The concern that we did end up having is how that decision, as well as the other decision associated with the permits issued in the Wailuku River, are how those kind of work in connection with the proposed changes to the IIFS. As I'm sure the Commission knows, in 2014, the County of Maui, Alexander and Baldwin, and several of the community groups, including Maui Tomorrow, Hui Noe Waiaha, and the Office of Hawaiian Affairs, came to a mediated agreement on the IIFS. Part of that mediated agreement allowed for some flexibility during periods of low flow that would assure that the County of Maui would continue to have access to its water to provide necessary domestic drinking water to the nearly 101,000 residents that are dependent on the Central Maui system. However, with the updated IFS proposed by Dr. Miike, that flexibility has disappeared. As written, the proposed IFS could lead to periods of time where no parties are allowed to divert any water from the streams, including the County of Maui and its customers. While we were discussing this and how to approach our concerns with the IFS for Wailuku River, which specifically is in paragraphs 29 through 31 of the proposed decision and order, we spoke with Hui Noe Waiaha, Maui Tomorrow Foundation, and the Office of Hawaiian Affairs to kind of come up with a framework that we thought could address our concerns as well as their concerns in a way that assured that there would be the majority of the water would stay in the stream while still kind of recognizing that there are fluctuations in flow that could negatively affect some of the users. We provided in our response to the decision and order proposed language that we had worked out with the community groups that I mentioned that we think is a good balance. Dr. Miike was concerned with what was in the 2014 mediated agreement because it only made provisions for MDWS and some Kuleana users, but didn't recognize the 7 other users of the Waikapu ditch. But we do think that our special provision that we're talking about can address that without necessarily abandoning it. We actually think that the special provisions that we're suggesting can equally protect all users from the harsh realities of stream fluctuations in a manner that affords all users greater access during low flow periods based on the priority of use. And in addition, such flexibility would allow the general IFIS to be higher during normal flow periods to increase protection of in-stream value for the majority of the time. I'm not sure if you guys would like me to read what our proposed language is. It's kind of technical, but I'm happy to read that into the record. Otherwise, it is in our responsive pleading. Would you like me to read it? Okay. So we suggest that the proposed decision and order, paragraphs 29 and 31, be amended as follows. Paragraph 29. As in the special treatment for some South Waiahu Stream users, the special treatment for some Wailuku River users as contained in the 2014 mediated agreement is arbitrary and contrary to the treatment of similarly situated users. There are 12 other Kuleana applications with traditional and customary rights in the Waiaha, none of whom has received special treatment. Moreover, the special treatment in the 2014 mediated agreement excludes the other 7 users on the Yao Waikapu ditch without any stated reason. And we would like to add, accordingly, reference to specific quantities and types of use as contained in the special provision in the 2014 mediated agreement are deleted. Paragraph 31 would be adjusted as follows. The IFS for the Wailuku River is modified as follows. We suggest in paragraph B adjusting 10 million gallons a day to 13 million gallons a day just below the diversion operated by Wailuku Water Company above the Waikapu and Iao Mania ditches. We suggest deleting paragraph 31BI and replacing it with a new paragraph 31BI that will read as follows. So it goes 13 million gallons a day just below the diversion operated by Wailuku Water Company, provided that when the average daily flow measured at the USGS stream gauge station 16604500 on Wailuku River is below 19.5 million gallons a day for 3 consecutive days, the IFIS shall be adjusted to 2/3 of the stream flow, such that 1/3 of the stream flow may be diverted for non-in-stream use until this flow returns to 19.5 million gallons a day or greater. Users will receive water during such conditions through the priority system established for all parties in the proposed decision and order. So that's our proposed change to the IFS for the Wailuku River.
So basically, let me see if I can do it in English. You're proposing an increase of 3 MGD right below the diversion, and then trying to get some flexibility during low flows. And the USGS stream gauge, where is that located from the river as far as elevation?
I'm not entirely sure about that.
Because you talked about that's 19.5 MGD, which is much more than an IFS. So
It's just above the intake. I could probably find that in the decision order somewhere, but I'm not entirely sure where that gauge is located.
that's one question. I'm a little confused because we have 13 MGD at the top, and then we're saying when it's less than 19.5, so we actually have more. So a little confused, but I can look it up. And also, how would you implement that?
So
We are struggling, I think, with just how do we implement during low flows. Our IFS is at a Q50. So that means half the time, the amount of water is not gonna be there. And when it's really high flows, chances are sometimes it won't be usable as well. So we're talking about a very flexible situation at a USGS gauge. How does the commission and the community actually implement that kind of recommendation?
First, I think I'd like to address, I think I misunderstood your first question, or I can offer some insight into the first part of your question regarding the 19.5. We selected 19.5 million gallons a day because that's 13 million gallon a day IIFS plus the proposed uses by the County of Maui and several of the Kuleana users. So we added that to the IIFS to determine what would qualify as a low period, and that would be a period where not all uses can be accommodated. That's where we got the figure.
Kuleana users aren't being put, the water's not being going back into the stream.
I'm not sure. I'd have to. I think some of them are, but I don't think that all of them are. And I'm sorry, what was the second part of your question? I was thinking about.
I'm just trying to figure out how we implement that, because if we're looking about flexibility, and you're not the only stakeholder that is representing flexible IFSs based on flows.
I think there would have to be a combination of enforcement by the commission as well as just cooperation between the county and the various stakeholders. As I stated, this proposed language is something that we came up with WIO Navaia and Maui Tomorrow and the Office of Hawaiian Affairs. So we are able to cooperate and come to agreements, and I'm hopeful that in the future, should we reach the levels where this kind of situation is necessary, we'll be able to do the same. And going back, Dr. Miike did kind of set forth a framework of categories of uses and their priorities in terms of importance to the public trust, and we think using that as a framework to start with is at least a good starting place and is helpful for the purposes of maintaining that.
Thank you for the presentation. Certainly important, to maintain our commitment to public trust principles, and domestic is a key one of those. But I'm just wondering, you mentioned 101,000 residents. So are all of the users of Maui County, do you guys consider those domestic uses?
So the 101 that I referenced refers to the population of the service area of the Central Maui system. And generally we do kind of anticipate that pretty much everybody that lives in the area gets their domestic drinking water from the county.
But do you have other users that you don't consider domestic users?
We do, and I believe that is in the decision in order. Dr. Miike stated, I believe it's 64% of our water distribution system is for domestic use, and then there's also agricultural uses and industrial uses as well. But I believe the figure was 64% of it is domestic use.
So, and economic hotels, do you guys charge different rates based off of usages versus domestic, or are you charging everyone the same rate?
Jeff Pearson, the hotels are being charged the same rate. Of course, we have a tiered system, so they're going to use a lot more water, so they're going to pay a higher rate based on the higher tier.
And if I may, yes, in paragraph 282 of the findings of fact, paragraph E, or 282E, or 282F, single and multifamily families represent the highest percentage of current and projected water use at 63 to 64%. Agriculture and private irrigation 2%, and the remainder is 11 to 12 commercial, 8 to 9% hotels, 9% government.
So, thank you. So, I'm wondering, with this proposed flexibility, certainly the commission and public trust requires, that we make a priority for domestic use. I'm just wondering, how do we separate and distinguish? Because I think what you're recommending, if we did agree with some type of hybrid IFS or a little more flexibility, I'm not confident, at least with what's in the record, how much of that's going specifically for domestic and other usages.
I understand your comment. Again, all I can say is that 64% of our users are domestic. I'm not really sure how we would, because not all of our domestic water comes from the outage, right? A lot of it also comes from groundwater sources. So I'm not really sure how we would differentiate which water, the water coming from the Yao is specifically going to the domestic users, while the water for the remainder of the users is coming from the well system. There's not really a mechanism that we have to differentiate the source from the end user. If that answers your question.
Jeff, you want to add to that a little bit more too?
Well, that's exactly true what Caleb said. In a simple example, some of the water that we pull from the Waihe aquifer gets its use in the Kihei Wailea area where the hotels are. So, you have to do, I don't think you'd have enough equations and unknowns to determine the percentage of domestic use based on the source that comes from Waihe, Aquifer, Eagle Valley, Eagle Aquifer, and surface water. It'd be a quite arduous way to determine specifically where the domestic use is versus where the industrial.
But you're asking for a need for surface water, and to amend the IIFS, or to have some kind of flexibility. But I'm not seeing a provision that really allows us to determine how much of that is going to domestic. Given you say there's a mix, something's coming from aquifers and other instances, so that would be helpful, I think, for me.
To sort of follow up with Mike's question in the mechanics of as water flows recede and you want flexibility in providing domestic water sources, at what point does the board implement its restrictions or water use limitations as the water levels drop? Right now, you're based on a Q50. That's grossed up, and as the water flows recede, how does the lower end of that mechanics work? And to Mike's question, are the mechanics in place currently to manage that on a timely basis?
Surface water is the major source of water, mostly for upcountry Maui and the West Maui. For central Maui, we don't have as much, we're a little more drought. We're a little safer from drought due to the fact that only the surface water comes from the Iao treatment plant. Beyond that, we have wells throughout from Waikapu Stream all the way north to Waihe. So we're a little bit, have better flexibility with central Maui as far as dealing with low flow situations. When there is low flow in the streams, or at times we've had loss of flow to the Iao treatment plant just recently, we have to make up for that with our series of wells that again, as I said, that's throughout Iao and Waihe aquifers.
You're asking other users to thrift back as you try to maintain some stability to your users. At what point or how much impact do the other users see before you start to mitigate their impact or their reduction in water use? That's as you start ratcheting down, where does the board come in and say, okay, we start ratcheting down ourselves? So I want to see, sort of get a feel for what the rest of that slope looks like.
Well, the proposal is written, isn't that the county always gets the water, and everybody else has to fend off. It's in general that's what the previous decision, or that's what the 2014 stipulated agreement, it had a specific amount that the county continued to take out. Recognizing that there are going to be other needs and that there are Kuleana users that were not recognizing that decision, we've kind of agreed to this idea that it's just going to be a flat, I believe 3% is the term, or 1/3 could continue to be diverted for non-in-stream users. And again, we think that the framework that Dr. Miike put in there is helpful. I understand your question, and I don't necessarily have a good answer for you, except that we're hopeful that because we were able to cooperate with the community groups in coming to a resolution of how to address this problem that we all saw, we'll also be able to address those specific concerns as the conditions arise. And as Jeff said, I think that the county is kind of in a unique position where we probably have a bit more flexibility than some other users have, which is something that we recognize and something that we will bring to the table should these concerns ever come to fruition.
Okay, do you have the option of increasing your groundwater pumping?
No, we're near, the groundwater people from the CWRM aren't here, but we're right near our sustainable yield of 20 million gallons a day for EL. It's of course, you know, it's a 12-month moving average. We pumped as much as maybe even a little more than 20 million gallons some months, but we're at 18, sometimes 19 million gallons a day, so we don't have much more to go with it.
Thank you.
Well, I have one more thing.
Probably knew this was coming. With your increased use of surface water from the West Maui watershed, are you going to increase your contributions to the West Maui watershed partnership?
I didn't actually know that was coming, but I'd like to think that we provide a pretty large contribution, not only to West Maui watershed partnerships, but to the majority of watershed partnerships throughout Maui. So I would be quick to brag about appropriating about $2.6 million a year or so to all the watershed protection.
Leader, our leader, you always do more of them.
Can I do a quick response to what Kamada was talking about? You know, we look at growth in the central Maui area, and we look at the available water supply that we have, and we determine meter issuance based on that. We need this 3.2 million gallons a day. We're hoping to get that. Please consider not only the fact that it's domestic use versus other than domestic use that is used through the County of Maui, but it's important to keep the health of the County of Maui going and Central Maui going with in this increase that we're proposing in the water use permit. So please consider that.
Thank you. Okay, next up is Mahi Pono, LLC.